In the world of tennis, she's one of the very best. And one of her best memories is her Olympic title. We look back with Justine Henin. The Olympic truce is the focal point of a great international forum at Olympia in Greece this month. We'll have the whole story of the truce in this edition of Olympic Magazine. Not quite 25 years old, but she's already achieved 5 Grand Slam titles, 1 Olympic gold medal, and many weeks as world #1. Her name, Justine Henin. Justine took her first steps on a tennis court in Belgium at the age of 5. By the time she was 12, she decided to make tennis her life, and a good choice it was. Justine Henin has climbed right to the top, and on the clay courts, she's simply awesome. 3 times the champion of the Grand Slam tournament at Roland Garros. When you think of tennis players, you may remember their victories in the Grand Slams more than their Olympic medals. But as far as I'm concerned, from the personal point of view, Roland Garros and the Olympic Games in Athens will both remain for me the major events of my career. Henin's Olympic adventure took place in Athens 3 years ago. She had been asked to carry the flag of the Belgian team, but she turned down the offer. Her first match would be just 2 days later, and she wanted to prepare herself for her first Olympic rendezvous. I didn't realize before taking part in the Games just what they would mean to me. I always loved to watch the Olympic Games, but only some disciplines. I mean, at one time, I didn't even know that tennis was an Olympic sport. Well, I had no doubt about going to the Games. You know, I could have taken part in Sydney. I could have asked for a wild card in 2000, but I didn't want to go at that time. I thought I was too young to undergo such an experience there in the middle of a big team. I simply didn't feel ready for it. But in 2004, I jumped into the unknown. I was just recovering from my virus at the time. I had no expectations, really, but in Athens, I experienced the most wonderful moments of my whole career. Henin has worked hard, and she's ambitious. She's enjoyed moments of glory and joy. Sometimes it's been tough, there's been pain, illness, injury, and doubt. But it's all helped to mold her character. Justine Henin protects herself on and off the court. She's very introverted. You can see it on the court too. I think you get a rather true image of the person when you see her on the court. And you can start to imagine a little bit what kind, what style of person she is outside. Only a little bit, because of course there are many facets which obviously you can't see on a tennis court.
Il y a plein de facettes évidemment qui apparaissent pas sur un court de tennis.
August the 14th, 2004, the men's Olympic road race. Belgium, so fond of cycling, had someone to cheer. Third behind Bettini and Paulinho, Axel Merckx won the bronze medal. Justine was swept up in the Olympic fever. The day when Axel Merckx won the first medal, the bronze, it was on a Saturday, the first day of the Games, and we were all so thrilled in our residence in the village. Such a wonderful moment when you see a compatriot win. We were so deeply moved. The year before Athens had been Justine's year. 2 Grand Slam titles at Roland Garros and Flushing Meadows as she became world #1 for the first time. At the beginning of 2004, she won her 3rd Grand Slam, the Australian Open. Then, after illness, the big challenge, the Olympics. I knew the Sydney Stadium well, which is an advantage for most players. And the atmosphere is special there. First, more people behind you supporting you. Second, you're playing for your country. I had nothing special to do in terms of the atmosphere, in terms of preparation. I prepared myself exactly as usual for a Fed Cup match, for the Olympic Games or for a tournament. I don't think there's any difference really. Anyway, it was magical. I felt that emotion for once in my life, to enjoy the support of a whole country. A nasty virus had kept the Belgian away from the courts for 4 months. And after a rather tepid start, she got somewhere close to perfection in the semi-final against the Russian Anastasia Miskina. I came to Athens with no pretensions, you know, no great ambition. I didn't know whether I was at the top of my form or not. I keep saying that a little miracle occurred for me in Athens. To tell the truth, I hadn't been feeling well for a few months, but there I got the best out of myself at such a difficult time. I was losing, I think, at 5-1 in the third set, and yet I managed to impose myself to win 8-6. I realized that Anastasia had become really wobbly, and I just tried to grasp my chance. It could have gone the other way. It's over now, but I might have had a glimpse of luck that day. I was thinking during the match, oh la la, you'll have to get back on the court tomorrow and fight for the bronze medal, and that disturbed me. I told myself, no, I don't want that. And then I definitely gave the best of myself. One of my best memories, one of the best matches of my life, for sure. Justine Henin had rediscovered herself. The proof was in that semi-final. The world number one remembered the winning formula, beating Miskina 7-5, 5-7, 8-6. 2 hours, 44 minutes, a marathon match. Would weariness be a handicap in the final against Amélie Mauresmo? The French player, with her new status at world number 2, was set on the gold medal and not about to underestimate Justine. I believe she's never more dangerous than in this situation. No, I didn't tell myself she has to be physically exhausted. I knew that if she was in the Olympic Games, it meant she was competitive. I mean, she's so particular. You don't return to tournament tennis before you are competitive. Yeah, I expected a difficult match. August the 21st, 2004. Mauresmo was highly motivated. But in the first set, Justine Henin served especially well and gave the French player few chances. It was high-quality tennis between the world number 1 and world number 2. At 5-3 in her favor, the Belgian made some excellent backhand returns and took the first set 6-3 in 32 minutes. The gold medal was getting closer. Against Amélie, I played the most important match in my career, no question. I had the right approach and a feeling of serenity too. Everything worked perfectly. I didn't worry too much, I wasn't nervous. I just wanted to make the most of the moment. I was certain of getting a medal. Of course, I dreamed of the gold, but that didn't depend just on me. Really, I just did my best. Justine didn't slacken off in the second set. She loves those big finals. Amélie, on the other hand, seemed to feel the pressure of the Olympic occasion. Henin managed the situation better. (6-3, 5-3, 40-30). Match point. A point for the Olympic gold. And another classic shot, the backhand along the line, followed by game, set, and championship. Justine Henin was back, and Belgium had its first Olympic gold in tennis in the presence of another famous Belgian, Jacques Grog, the president of the International Olympic Committee. And so many emotions for the two players. The anthem and the medal ceremony was something really strong, something difficult to describe because you feel so proud, unlike in any other tournament. And the thoughts of the beaten finalist Mauresmo standing on the podium, in fact, really moved me and gave me emotions totally different from the ones I've experienced in other tournaments. That moment was perhaps even more powerful, the pride of standing on the Olympic podium. I just felt extraordinarily lucky. Despite her smiles, her great joy, Justine Henin had become well aware that it was by no means the same for all the competitors in the Olympic Village. She'd been a well-known athlete among so many who were virtually anonymous. Yes, I became aware of it. It struck me, and even maybe a little bit sad, that so many athletes gave the best of themselves just as I did. They made exactly the same sacrifices. Everybody works hard, and yet some sports remain so little known. It is hard because you see so many athletes in difficulty. That struck me too. I became aware of how lucky I was to belong to a well-known sport like tennis, in which we have huge advantages. And that's why I have so much admiration for all of the athletes. I really find what they do is terrific. The next major goal of Justine Henin is to win the French Open once again at Roland Garros. She wants her name engraved for the 4th time in golden letters on the Suzanne Lenglen Cup. Longer term, she's looking forward to defending her Olympic title in Beijing next year.
Roland Garros from Sunday at 11, live on Eurosport.
Of the 2 teenagers last Christmas.
This cipher is my identity.
I like killing people because it is so much fun.
If you do not print this cipher, I will go on a kill rampage.
Zodiac.
Sochi, gateway to Russia's Riviera. Sochi, gateway to millions of hearts. Sochi, gateway to Olympic legacy. Sochi 2014, gateway to the future.
Real snow guaranteed.
What if your entire business could learn to minimize risks? Well, off the course anyway. Because change happens. Zurich.
Yahoo and Eurosport, the new online sport experience featuring extensive coverage of all sports, the live box, the scoreboard of your favourite sporting events, a running feed on breaking sports news, and the video player to watch exciting highlights, interviews and live streaming. Eurosport.yahoo.com. Be a better sports fan.
The countdown continues to the next Olympic Games. The Chinese have just unveiled the Olympic torch, which will symbolize the Games of the 20th Olympiad next year in Beijing. Since its creation in 1936, the torch has always represented the art and culture of the host country, a unique symbol which anchors the Games in history. So China's main theme on the 2008 torch? Clouds, represented across its entire surface.
Cloud for Chinese, is come together, flowing, and have a new thing, creative some new thing. So that's just very similar, the feeling with the Olympic spirit is people come together, sharing, and happiness together.
The Chinese torch, named Cloud of Promise, was chosen from among 300 projects. It'll be carried by athletes from all around the world.
The Olympic flame, carried by the torch and passed around the world from torchbearer to torchbearer, will stimulate excitement in peoples across the globe and focus their attention on the upcoming Beijing Games.
In the presence of the IOC, the Chinese organizers have announced the schedule of the Olympic torch relay, which will precede the Beijing Games. It'll last 130 days and travel 137,000 kilometers, visiting every continent before ending its trip with a great tour around China, along the ancient Silk Road, through Tibet. It'll also pass through Chinese Taipei, and this Taiwanese leg of the tour has raised controversy. China claims the island is part of its own territory, but the Taiwanese government does not admit to being part of China's national tour of the torch relay. This route is on China's domestic relay route. I'm afraid this is an attempt to undermine our sovereign status, and we cannot accept it. Reactions on the street were a little bit softer. I think the torch traveling from Beijing to Taiwan is good. At least this is a friendly gesture in terms of politics across the Taiwan Straits. There's no need to think too much about this. Nowadays, a lot of political matters are turned into a political show. It's just too much, really. This is not necessarily a political matter. It's a big sporting event. The Olympic torch symbolizes a call to truce during the Games. It's become a message of peace around the world and must be kept out of any political cause. China and Chinese Taipei need to find a resolution before the 25th of March 2008, the day of the lighting of the flame at Olympia. Visiting China, the IOC Coordination Commission expressed its satisfaction with the Olympic preparations 477 days before the opening ceremony. So far, the Chinese organizers are on track. In parallel to the visit, the Executive Commission has accepted the idea of creating the Youth Olympics. The idea, proposed by the IOC President, aims to stop the decline of sporting practice among young people and give them an education based on moral values.
There will be competitions, of course, but the main goal is not elitism, and the main goal is not the competition as such. The main goal is to give to the youngsters an education based on Olympic values: friendship, fair play, non-violence, rejection of any form of doping.
The idea of the Youth Olympics comes from the European Youth Days, an event created in 1991 by Jacques Rogge when he was president of the European Olympic Committees. The aim is to help teenagers from all over the world in their development. It's dedicated to 14 to 18-year-olds with the same sporting program as the Olympic Games, but adapted to their age, teaching them the values of sport. More than the result, it's the way to it that matters. The Youth Olympics should bring together 3,000 athletes for the Summer Games and 1,000 for the Winter Games. The first summer edition could be in 2010, once the Youth Olympics have been given the go-ahead by the IOC session in Guatemala City next July.
The Executive Board of the IOC today unanimously approved the recommendation made by the Disciplinary Commission to declare 6 of these Austrian athletes permanently ineligible in any capacity for all future games. This means that they cannot participate anymore in whatever capacity, be that athlete, coach, official, or whatever in the Olympic Games anymore.
So 1 year after the Turin Games, heavy sanctions against those 6 biathletes and cross-country skiers suspected of doping offences during the last Winter Games.
By this decision, I think the IOC shows its clear determination to fight against doping with zero tolerance, and to fight against doping in cooperation also with the government.
And the inquiry is not over. It's possible that more sanctions against the Austrian team are still to come. Starting Sunday.
Hi, I'm Mats Wilander.
Join Mats Wilander every evening for Game, Set and Mats. First rendezvous Sunday 2100, live on Eurosport.
If you think you've seen every shade of blue, every shade of orange, every shade of green, come to Estoril. Estoril, one place, 1,000 sensations in Portugal.
SkyTeam, we strive to make your travel more direct. SkyTeam, caring more about you.
Roland Garros from Sunday at 11, live on Eurosport.
BNP Paribas, official sponsor of Roland Garros.
Peugeot, official partner of the French Open for more than 20 years.
Across the world, individuals, athletes, all sorts of associations are organizing sporting initiatives for peace. As we saw in Olympic magazine last month, the start of peace through sport was brought about by the Jordanian Olympic Committee for the benefit of communities involved in conflict all around the world. All those sporting events in favor of peace and humanity uphold the Olympic values.
At the end of the day, when you're looking at creating peace, when you're looking at creating understanding, it's really about celebrating humanity, which is at the core essence of what Olympism is all about. And so I think it very much is in line with Olympic values, Olympic ideals, the concept of the Olympic truce.
The Olympic truce is in fact the first official date known in civilization. It was carved into a stone in ancient Greece. It's the true origin of the Olympic Games. The Games, according to folklore, were born in 884 BC, when the king of the city of Elide went to consult the Delphic oracle, and Pythia told him, if you want peace in Greece, create the Olympic Games and organize the truce. At least that's what tradition tells us. And those games took place there for more than 1,000 years, in a peaceful atmosphere, and with a desire to educate, because ancient Greeks wanted sport to be just like the Anglo-Saxons want it today, as an essential element of education. But in the modern context of the Olympic truce, there's plenty to do. In recent times, wars have stopped the Games twice, and 3 boycotts weakened them between 1976 and 1984. But a UN decision, including sporting sanctions in 1991 against the Yugoslavian war, officially renewed the concept of the truce. The disintegration of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia renewed the wish to ask respect for the Olympic truce, because sport as a method of sanction was not supported by the Olympic movement. The IOC believed that sport brings young people together, and all the national Olympic committees gave their backing to the IOC president, President Juan Antonio Samaranch. He, in turn, then persuaded the United Nations Secretary General, Boutros Boutros-Ghali, that sporting sanctions were in fact counterproductive. The United Nations, being an organization that tries to promote peace and promote international cooperation, has found in the Olympic Games a tool capable of reinforcing its action. Therefore, in fact, the Olympic truce, apart from its symbolic value, has an advantage. It stops the fighting and gives mediators the chance of taking advantage of the truce by trying to start a new dialogue between the combatants.
Please.
In 1994, the truce didn't prevent the massacres in Sarajevo at the height of the Yugoslavian conflict. But in 1998, there was real tension between the United States and Iraq during the Nagano Winter Games. And although we don't know precisely how it did or didn't have a bearing on the negotiations, the truce was respected. So in which way does the Olympic truce have real meaning during the Games? I believe it's a very strong symbol, a symbol which means that all the world's nations unanimously wish the Games to take place, in peace, with no armed conflict. In 2002, the Games made possible, for example, free passage for the Salt Lake City athletes. Despite the Afghanistan war, despite the 9/11 attack, which took place around 16 weeks before our American friends opened their borders to foreign athletes. Athletes who otherwise would never have been allowed to enter the United States. I believe it's a strong symbol, even though we know it only lasts a short while, just 2 weeks, but I believe the world needs some of these symbols. To put the Olympic truce into concrete form, the IOC has been working for many years to prevent risks, especially in war-torn countries. Each time there's a conflict, there's a need to reorganize society, to restart sporting practice, and it's there that the IOC makes its presence felt. For example, in Iraq and Afghanistan, before the Athens Olympics. To rebuild a sporting structure in a country in which there is or there has been a war is never easy, because you need to make a choice from the sporting leaders, from those who have the power, bearing in mind what they did in the past. We don't want today, for instance, Talibans or former Taliban who still play a part in Afghanistan. We've suspended them because they didn't, for example, agree with women's sports. And we don't want in Iraq to have at the head of sport people who committed crimes. So we need to make inquiries to check the credentials of future officials and identify all the coaches, the whole sporting network, all the athletes. Painstaking but necessary work. In the end, Afghans and Iraqis took part in the Games in Athens. Their athletes were able to train beforehand and take part in international competitions thanks to Olympic solidarity. The presence of the Afghans and Iraqis at the Olympic Games is so important for their countries.
We got the gold medal the first day when we arrived here in Athens, and as you mentioned, the support of the rest of the nations to the Iraqi, that's the most beautiful thing, and we appreciate what the others they did for the Iraqi, either to support them by means or by cheering them. And this is the most important for us. Any result will come, it will come, you know, at second.
I think the people of Iraq essentially seek the same normal things as people anywhere in the world. They want to have the same hopes, the same dreams, the same fantasies. And what could be